There we go. Thank you for your patience. We'll get started here in just a minute once everybody gets added in. And again, we will be recording this and posting it to our school YouTube along with the previous two sessions. And so if you would leave yourself muted and camera off, that way you don't get captured in the recording inadvertently. All right, and I should be showing my screen. And for those of you who are here, I want to give you a quick tech tip that has made my life tremendously easier. When I log into Schoology, and you'll notice I'm logged in as me, the parent, I can toggle down and look at this like my son does. But when I'm logged in as me, the parent, I have the option then to click on this little calendar icon here in the blue tab. In that blue tab, it will bring up my calendars. I have a wide variety of calendars to choose from. I've been doing this Schoology thing for a while. So I have my personal, I have my robotics, I have a transition option, and then I have the counseling department that I subscribe to, the high school, the whole school, and the PLC. Those are the options that are available to me. And what I love to be able to do is if I'm looking at it like me and I scroll down, I have the option to export. If I click on export, I can choose to subscribe to my Schoology calendar from a different calendar. So if I have an iCal, if I have a Google Calendar, if I have an Outlook calendar, any of those web live calendars that show up on my phone, on my personal accounts, I can choose to share the Schoology calendar with this iCal.ics. So if I copy and paste this whole ugly link into my regularly used personal calendar, all of the things that Lindsay for activity posts, when Dr. Perez posts important dates, all of that will then show up in my school calendar. So a reminder that every Friday we have our virtual office hours that the students can zoom in on. House Color Spirit Day for on campus or at home. Our upcoming parent boot camp session. The ability to look ahead into October and know and make a note that the PSAT testing for our 11th graders is happening on October 13th, which for those of us with sophomores and freshmen means it's a home day. They are not coming on campus because the whole staff at all the campus is dedicated to supporting our juniors doing that PSAT. So that's helpful for planning purposes to make sure that I understand what's what. So there is our quick tech tip for today. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Sonoda, if you want to go ahead and start the recording. I want to thank you, Mr. Sonoda, for being our wonderful moderator today. And then I'm going to come back here and
Nikki, before we move on, we do have a question about the calendars.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to take that now.
Sure.
So we had a question asking how we might be able to subscribe to different calendars. Do you just repeat that process with each one?
The best option is I select the calendars with that drop-down menu at the top. And then when I export, that's what it's taking with me. So right now, you notice the calendar is different when I look at it like my son. I have that daily check-in question. I have course updates and due dates that are posted here. And I do not have the option to subscribe if I'm viewing it as my child. I have to come back here, view like myself, go to the calendar, and then there'll be some varied numbers here. If you are a part of a group because you've subscribed to a group. You should have the option for a group calendar. I have subscribed to the counseling department, and therefore the counseling shows up as one of my menu options. If you haven't subscribed to that, it won't be there. The most important one to be sure that you're seeing are the school ones. So here's the parent group right here. This is the whole school, Classical Academies. That's our whole organization. And then the Classical Academy High School PLC. This is that tan one that shows all of the different events. That's where the big events are posted, is under this PLC calendar. You have the option to change the color of it, by the way. But in order to get them to show in here, you have to have subscribed to it. So unless you have been a robotics mentor, you won't see the youth protection program. Unless you have subscribed to the counseling department, you won't see that one as a group option. Hopefully all y'all have already decided to sign up for our PL parents page. And if you have not, before you drop off today, please be sure that you linger at the end, and I'll give you the code for that. Did that answer the question? Okay. So once again, from this point, Mr. Shinoda, we can go ahead and have everybody turn their cameras off and make sure that you're muted, because we'll start the recording. That's going to go onto YouTube. And maybe y'all don't want to be hanging out with your faces visible on YouTube. Are we ready for the, oh, there we go. And we are recording. Excellent. All right. So just a quick recap for those Monday home office hours. You will be wanting to be sure that you and your student are both logging in to Schoology to look for any of those course posts, any of those updates, any of the things that the students need to be paying attention to as they're setting their weekly goals. For example, the ASL course has a weekly update. We've had some updates for the school campus, the PSAT, which is for the juniors, our 11th graders. And that also means that our 9th, 10th, and 12th graders will be having a home day on October 13th. There are no workshops for our workshop students. We also get a chance to see anything that they've turned in here in Schoology. So paying attention to Schoology for those updates, for those announcements. But the big focus on our time today is in our Summit Learning. So again, just a reminder that it is summitlearning.org. If you do just Summit, that's going to take you to a church. Summit.com, last I looked, was a printer storage or printer and device storage computer or company. So both you and your students log in to summitlearning.org here with the login. A reminder that your student will be logging in with their Google Drive and their TCA docs. The parent login is in the upper right-hand corner. This is where you give that first initial last name, dot, and their number, whatever that number is. And then your password. Okay. So remember that you're always logging in as a parent, and then you land here on the parent dashboard. Mr. Sonoda, if you could drop into the chat, I have a PDF version of what we're going to start with today that parents can follow along with, and it's called Summit at a Glance. So in our Summit at a Glance, it is a printable for y'all. The idea is it's a place for you to write down that parent login and that parent password. I recommend that you have it written down somewhere. Even though you can instruct your computer to save that login information, if something happens, it can be cumbersome to try and get it reset. So if you have it written down somewhere and something happens with your computer, you can still log in and spy on your kiddo. Okay. A couple things to note once you get logged in. I would encourage you at your leisure to explore the parent guide. We will be going over much of that information through these parent boot camps, but you're welcome to revisit it at your leisure. You will probably get a little nugget that will help you be more successful. Okay, we are looking at this through that Monday office hours, and through Summit, we encourage the parents to check the platform at least weekly to be sure that you understand the current projects your students working on and how they're progressing timely. We also want you to be checking out your cognitive skill performance for your student and whether he or she is on track to meet their individual goals, and their pace of passing content assessments. That is the big focus for today, which is on those power focus areas, additional focus areas, and that at-home learning environment. So again, this is when you land. And when we go to your child's dashboard, this is the link, this is the click. Okay, so ideally your student should land on their announcements page. One of the things I want to pay attention to as down here at the bottom where it says viewing as and your child's name, that means you are in the right place. If you are in a shared computer setting and your computer tries to log into Summit using your student's Google Docs account, it won't show that viewing as piece. So as a parent, to help maintain that academic integrity, you always want to be sure that unless you are sitting with your student and they're being the mouser, they are the one engaging in the platform with you as a supervisor. If you are engaging with the computer, then you want to be sure you are viewing as and logged in as a parent. Hopefully I've hit this really, really hard. So that is the academic integrity piece. Your student is doing their work. This is essential when they are on campus in workshops and you are supervising from home. If they are doing work logged in as them or taking a content assessment and you attempt to log in as them by accident, it will kick them out. So that could invalidate a content assessment and it could jeopardize the work product they're doing in a project. So there we go. I've said it lots. Okay, so when we first land and view, we can see the announcements that are posted by the course teachers. For example, there's been an ASL post. There was an English post reminder. While I have you parents here, just a reminder that that STAR testing has replaced the MAPS testing for our measures of progress. We know that last year was a bizarre year and that our students are coming to us with potential gaps. So we want to be sure that we are taking steps to identify those potential gaps early and be able to meet the students where they are and accelerate them to where they need to be by the end of the year. This is a low stakes assessment. All it is doing is providing us with subject matter assessment. What does your child, your student need that we can address in direct instruction and support? It does not affect their grade. It does not get marked anywhere that they have either acceleration potential or gaps in their knowledge. We are using it just to identify how we can improve our program. The maps can be taken with their math teacher and with their English teacher. It does not affect grades or enrollments. It simply gives us the data that we need. So sooner rather than later. So, hey, there's an announcement from the announcements page. All right, so on our next tab down, we land on our week view. The week is where your students set goals, and it's really important that you help guide them during that Monday home office hour time. So again, the students check off the goals. They do not self turn green. The student has to turn them green. So for example, we were looking this morning on a checkpoint for the world history class, and my son has already jumped in to review the feedback on the similarity project. He is then has planned out that he wants to spend time working on that similarity power focus area. And I know the difference between, even though they're named the same for Math 2, similarity and similarity, the vocabulary here is different between a power focus area and a project. Feedback happens on a project. The students take notes on objectives for similarity power focus area. He then wants to prepare for the assessment and then is planning to pass the content assessment on similarity on Thursday. If he doesn't pass it, this then gives him Friday to go to his teacher's office hours and get clarification and support. So that is the plan that he mapped out for this week for that power focus area. Again, in English, feedback indicates a project. It also notes dystopian project as we link to it. In chemistry, for any of y'all that have Mr. James for chemistry, Mr. James does not recommend working ahead. Much of what he does is with direct instruction in the workshops or with videos available for our at-home learners. And so my son's focus for this week is apparently just to attend class. Obviously, we still have some goals we need to set for ASL. And he has an additional goals box. This is incredibly useful when there's outside courses that they're taking or they do other things. So for PE, we can drop on exercise. He has horseback riding as a PE on Wednesday, exercising again on Thursday. But maybe there's extra pieces of things he needs to remember, goals or chores. So he could choose to add a goal today, which is wheelie bins to the curb. He could also choose to type in a goal that involves his music lessons. And he could create a goal that he has a lesson today and that he has to practice his guitar on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, again, it's going to kick off an alert. I cannot create this on his behalf. He has to do it, which is where those Monday home office hours are very valuable. That time with both of you working together to help set those goals. Not every student will have additional goals set as part of their platform. If it is something you are interested in, your student should ask their mentor teacher at their mentor time to have that set up for them. And again, a nod to mentoring, that should happen every week or every other week. That can happen one-to-one in person, one-to-one in Zoom, or with the video option of along. But we are asking for weekly check-ins with our students to make sure we're monitoring their progress. And we have that as a measure of engagement, one of those key pieces for this independent study with the new laws in place. Our next tab down is our year page. And this is where we're going to spend the most of our time today. You'll notice on this worksheet that I sent for you, I go through them in order and give you a quick overview of what happens on each one. But I want to jump to the back side real quick. So that's page 2 before we dig into our year view. On that graphic, you'll notice that there's a balance, and we need you to help our students with that balance. 70% of their scores approximately, math is a little bit different because there's the performance task, which is like an assessment where they have to show what they know. All of that gets lumped into the project grade, and that showed where they apply. That's the key piece where they apply what they've learned in those power focus areas. The teachers assign them, and they assign those projects with clear deadlines. I didn't get that. Could you try it? Sorry about that. For example, we have due dates that are assigned for each of these checkpoints. And the final project is due on September 17th. So the projects get assigned by the teachers with clear deadlines, and the teachers provide feedback in the form of these feedback circles. Green is the student submitted work that was grade level appropriate, complete, and they are ready to progress. Yellow is the student submitted work timely, but it either wasn't at the appropriate grade level or they didn't quite master the concept that needed to be addressed. So they have the opportunity to revise that work to get it to that green level. Red is typically reserved for students that did not submit the work timely. As we know in the adult world, there are deadlines. If we don't do our jobs on time, we don't get to keep our jobs. So this is real life practice as we are working our students through growing their skills and practicing responding to deadlines. So again, green is good, yellow is take it slow, kind of that stoplight approach. Proceed with caution. You did it, but you didn't do it quite right. You need to take some time to fix it. Red is you didn't do it. Full stop, pay attention. This needs to be addressed immediately. Okay, and that is posted in their year view. Final products can happen, and there can be more than one of them. So for example, for English 2, we'll notice that there are 7 checkpoints, and we currently have 2 green and a yellow. So something was submitted, but it wasn't quite good enough. We need to pay attention to it, to either add more information, to complete it at the appropriate grade level cog skill, or to clarify a misconception or missed knowledge point. We also look to see that there are 3 starred pieces in that final product. There are 3 pieces that will be graded on those cognitive skills. So if I click on that and open it, I will notice that there are a large number of cog skills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cog skills that are divided across these 3 starred final products for the project. I always know how my student is going to be graded. I know that this is due. The last final product will be due on October 29th. And I always know how they're going to be graded on this rubric for the cognitive skills. As a sophomore, the appropriate grade level band is a 4 through a 6. There's a drop-down menu, and I can scale it down for a freshman or scale it all the way up for a senior. But for this example, looking at the sophomore grade band, all 6 of those cog skills are visible here in the rubric, and I can see what specifically will earn each one of those grades. So communicating accurately and precisely. If there's no evidence, that's a 40%. If there's a weak application, 55%. Partially meets, 70%. Mostly meets, 85%. Or fully meets grade level expectations, 100%. And again, we're looking at expressing, integrating, and applying content and conventions with accuracy and precision. Norms and active listening, that's part of your discussion. Contributing to our evidence-based discussion. How is it different? We're going to make comments versus expressing our own ideas clearly. We're going to express our own ideas clearly and pose relevant questions that are broadly connected to the topic and theme in the discussion in different but related areas. So we've got significant jumps to get from a 4 to a 5 and a 5 to a 6. Anytime your student is confused on that, they are welcome to discuss it with their course teacher. I would always recommend that if they are concerned, they visit that time with their course teacher during office hours before the due date. But again, this is part of that 70% that comes from their projects. And that is visible here under cognitive skills. And you'll notice that development, narrative, communicating accurately and precisely could show up across different curricular areas. It's not necessarily a cognitive skill that is English specific. Norms and active listening will show up as they're doing presentations for history and in chemistry lab work as well. contributing to evidence-based discussions, does cross-curricular boundaries. So you want to be sure that we're working to grow these cognitive skills, not just in one course, but in all the courses that they're relevant to. So that's the 30%, the 70% rather, is those cognitive skills. And it's the average of the highest scores for all the cognitive skills that show up for the course. So this project had 6. If I go over here under progress, I can look at the grades currently. Now, remember that with 70% of the grade coming from the projects, if a project hasn't been graded yet, the algorithm will not allow for a grade. It's not applicable. There's not enough of information available. But if I click on English here, I can look to see how those 6 cognitive skills are balanced with the other project of Poetry Everywhere. And the overall grade for the semester will be based on 10 cognitive skills. The average of all 10 of these will come right here. So if my son averages a 5 on all of his cog skills, for all 10 of them for the semester, it will land right here at that 85%, and he will earn 85% of the 70% available for his projects. If he averages a cog skill of a 6, then he will earn 100% of that 70% that's available for the projects. So you can always see how your student is being evaluated and what it looks like. It looks like for this course, there's 1 cog skill, communicating accurately and precisely, that will be evaluated twice. So the highest score is what gets put into the average that shows up here in this band. Right now, there's a 0% average because no scores have been input. The rest of the grade breakdown comes from 21% of the power focus areas and 9% from the additional focus areas as they relate to this course. In my grading matrix, I can look here and click on power focus area, and I can look to see this is incorrect. We are based on semesters. We are not based on the entire year. So students only have until January 14th to have finished all of the power focus areas. All PFAs, all power focus areas are required to have mastery of the course. That is the core content knowledge. So I can scroll down here and I recognize that for the rest of the semester, he has a total of 6. He's mastered 1, and he has 5 left to do. I can look to see that his highest score was a 10 out of 10, but it did take him 2 attempts, and he mastered it 18 days ago. I want to look to see the additional focus areas. If I look here, I notice that there is only 1 knowledge of words. So I will strongly recommend to my student that when he is current on his English work, remembering that you're going to spend 45 to 60 minutes per school day, per course. On average, some days you might dig in a little bit deeper, some days you might go a little bit lighter, but you are looking on those core courses to be sure you're digging in and spending quite a bit of time working, that he can spend time working on that knowledge of words, additional focus areas, to help make sure he zhuzhes his grade up a little bit. If he is looking at about a 5.5 cog skill average across all 10 of those skills, and he turns in and completes all of his power focus areas and all of his additional focus areas, he will in fact have enough percent to earn an A for the course. I've done the math. Okay, so looking at the back page here, on focus areas that make up those 30% of your grade. What does that look like? How do I support that information at home? How do I know what's due? Well, we're going to go back here to our year view, and we're going to take a look. So it looks like in chemistry, the line here is going to pass, but he's already mastered it. So we don't need to spend a lot of time working on that one. It's taken care of. But I can look at characterization, and that line's going to pass on September 24th. But I also know that if I mouse over this project, characterization 10 is one of those, I'll just leave my mouse there, is one of those related focus areas that he's going to need to be able to apply in that project work. So it makes a lot of sense to spend some time working on it now. I also know that he has set the goal here this week to focus on similarity. But first, let's start with English. I'm going to go ahead and click on that power focus area and get it to open up. All right, so this is where we start working on this next worksheet. So Mr. Sonoda, if you can drop in the one that looks like this. This is a task sheet. For those of you that are paper driven, you are welcome to print out a copy of this and have your student work through it, use it to set their goals for the week, and help them make sure that they're meeting all of those steps for that self-directed learning. So this is where we talk about a flipped classroom. This is where we talk about self-direction, because for the most part, the teachers don't teach the focus areas. This is where Summit flexes his skills and allows for that truly personalized learning. Your student gets to discover how it is they learn best and then take the steps to learn the material that way. A few exceptions. Mr. James with chemistry has figured out that many of our students cannot teach themselves chemistry. So he provides direct instruction in the in-person workshops, and he provides video resources for those at-home learners to help make sure they identify the key materials and those key objective notes to be successful. In world history, there are video resources that are available to support our kiddos that are fully online. Sometimes teachers will identify a specific workshop if students are struggling on theme or characterization or other difficult concepts. And so there may be an update that shows up in that updates area on or announcements in Summit that says, hey, I'm going to be doing a workshop today during office hours on Friday from 9:30 to 10:30. Come if you want help passing the theme power focus area. If students have already passed it, they don't have to attend. If students need help, it would be very wise to show up to get some specific and strategic instruction from the course teacher. But ideally, they should be attacking these independently. Really quickly, I'm going to give you a bit of a tour here of our first power focus area today. This one is called Characterization 10. It builds on Characterization 9. So for the students who are continuing with us, we are looking at growing their skills on a year-over-year basis. Here is the description of it, again, written in standards-based knowledge, standards-based language. Here are the key terms that students should be able to identify. The score needed to pass is an 8 out of 10. That is to be considered mastered. You'll notice that my son took 2. The first time he did not master it. On his second attempt, he was able to master the other one and we moved on. So now he moves on to the next one, from plot and theme to characterization. And we also could see that it is related to the dystopian project. All of that is available here on the right-hand side. Down the center of the page, or in the left-hand boxes, we start at the top, taking the diagnostic. But even before I do that, I can set a goal for myself. Every power focus area for self-direction should have a goal set. If I click on create goal while I am in this power focus area, it's going to default to this power focus area. It's going to assume that's where I want the goal. Today, I am going to make a plan, study and take notes, review and prepare for assessment, or pass content assessment. Today, we're going to make a plan because it's Monday. Mondays are good days for plans. And I'm going to work on breaking a big task into smaller chunks and then create the goal. On the day that I'm going to take the content assessment, I would then come in here, click on create goal, set the goal for past content assessment. I'm going to do this through process of elimination. And I'm feeling pretty confident. So I want to pass it with a 9 out of 10. And again, create the goal. So every day that a student works in a power focus area, they should have a goal in their platform for what they want to accomplish that day. This goes back to when you get in your car, you plug in your destination in your nav. That way you know when you get where you're going. So if you set your goal for what you want to do, then you can go back and turn it from blue to green that you finished the work. Once you have the goal set, you want to start here with a diagnostic. The diagnostic is that activate prior knowledge piece. It's designed to identify their strengths because we assume that they've come to us with some prior knowledge on these key terms. It also helps them get themselves into the right mindset. Even if they didn't do very well, they may have begun thinking about characterization in a different way just by going through this process. We have had some students recently take the diagnostic 4 or 5 times. You'll notice there's a retake option here. And they assume that when they get to a 7 out of 7, they're ready to take the content assessment. That is erroneous thinking. The diagnostic is designed to activate prior knowledge and to drive their attack plan. They get feedback circles, which are these dotted lines, and that's to show where they can grow and show where their strengths are. Once they have the feedback circles, they know how much time they should dive in here, sticking with that same stoplight mentality. If there's green here in this feedback circle, we came in with some solid prior knowledge. So I can look at these different resources here in the playlist and take about 1 page of notes. Again, student-generated notes are essential. Copy-paste notes from the internet or copy-paste notes from the resources are not valid notes. We want the students in this self-direction cycle to be engaging in the material. Some students really love videos. Some students hate videos. My daughter hated the videos. My son loves them. So they pick the resources that they want. And I would strongly recommend that if there's a check for understanding, this is a self-check, that I encourage them to jump on that and use that as a resource. If they have green for feedback, they should plan to identify 2 or 3 resources and take about a page of notes on that objective. If they have a yellow feedback circle, it means there's some gaps. They didn't come in as strong. They should do 3 or 4 resources and a 1.5 to 2 pages of notes on that objective. If your feedback circle comes back red, you should plan on 3, 4, or even 5 resources if they're available, and about 2 pages of notes on that objective because you weren't solid. There were some gaps. And again, anytime there's a check for understanding, I encourage the students to do that. If I open a check for understanding, you'll notice that basically it's a self-quiz. And they have the answers down below. They are not turning in the work they do in a power or additional focus area. But they should, if they didn't understand this information, be writing the answers into their notes because they had a gap they didn't understand. And so they could choose to flip this into a Cornell style note or a bullet style note, or even into an outline style note. Identifying this information, recognizing that mischievous and plays tricks is going to be which archetype? Well, it's the fool. Mischievous would be the fool. Playing tricks is probably not the villain. It's probably not the damsel in distress. And these are examples of archetypes that they might see in that content assessment. So to reiterate, none of the work that they do in the focus area, use the right vocabulary for you, gets turned in. This is the work that gets put into their spiral-bound notebook. And this is important because any piece of student-generated notes is allowed when they take the content assessment. So the process is set the goal for what you want to work on. Take the diagnostic. Use the feedback circles from the diagnostic to drive your note-taking. If it's green, it's a minimum of 1 page of notes for that objective. A yellow, 1.5 pages minimum. Red, 2-page minimum of notes because you didn't have good prior knowledge. You can then take the diagnostic again if you like. If you didn't do well before, take it again. See if you do better. When you're feeling confident and you have those notes taken, then you request the content assessment. The students click on this request button. And now is the time, Mr. Sonoda, for that last handout, which is at-home content assessment instructions. Hopefully you have seen this before as parents. If not, this is that necessary parent partnership piece. If a student is ready, they can show their notes to a live teacher upstairs in the SDL, in that big kind of study hall room. They can show their notes to their course teacher. But if they are at home requesting a content assessment, these are the necessary steps, okay? If you are using your own device, you will need to have installed the assessment mode to be sure that the assessment will open. It basically is a lockdown browser that allows students to use their notes that are written down and their knowledge in their brain, but they cannot use the internet and they cannot use resources on the assessment. This is truly a quick quiz of 10 questions to prove, do you know and have mastery on those baseline nuggets of knowledge. So for the assessment to be approved, the student must have requested it in the platform. The proctor, whoever is opening the assessment, is a real person. It is not an automated task. So whoever is opening the assessment, providing approval, will be verifying that the student has set a goal for that content area, for that focus area in the platform. They will check to see that they have taken that diagnostic. They will be looking at the student notes, which means if you're live and in person, you're flipping through the notes. And if you're requesting from home, you as the parent are sending an email request to proctor@classicalacademy.com with your initials and an attachment showing us the student note. This is you indicating your partnership, and you are prepared to help ensure that your student is taking this assessment using academic integrity, using their notes and their knowledge, not resources, not the internet. They're not on the phone a friend option. This is truly showing what they know, and you are helping us to maintain that high level of academic integrity. That email request is sent to a monitored email address, and the proctor will be verifying that the notes match the content assessment, that their diagnostic was taken, that the student has set a goal, and then they will be approving that request. When that happens, this request button, that when the student clicks it, says requested, then switches to start. That approval lasts 8 hours. It used to be 10 minutes, which was wicked hard, but it lasts 8 hours. So if your student requests their content assessment at 2:30 in the afternoon, it gets approved at 3, that assessment is available until 11 p.m. that evening. So if you need to wait and have your student take it after dinner, because that's when you're available to help proctor, that option is available to you. That student has 90 minutes from when they click start till when they have to click finished. So again, the timing is once it's requested and we receive an email, the proctors will have it open within 1 hour. You have 8 hours to begin it once it's been approved and 90 minutes to finish it once it's been started. I'm going to pause right here for some questions because I have a feeling there are some.
Yes, we definitely have some questions here. So the first question actually goes all the way back to the project information. So we had a question. So if their progress shows a project in red, will they be able to revise and change it to eventually be green? How does a red affect their final grade?
For the most point, I received some clarification from teachers today. For example, my student had a red checkpoint because he missed a piece and the teacher wants him to fix it. He went in, he fixed it. Yeah, that was our review feedback, and he's now requested feedback again. The teachers teach through the projects, so the goal is always revising. There are very few teachers that will leave a red if the student is making effort towards fixing it. We have a few students that have started just requesting feedback without doing the work. That will get flagged red. If they continue doing that and not opening up the worksheet, making the revisions, and then requesting feedback, that might get left red. But for the most part, the teachers are always looking to grow the students' skills. So from a red to a yellow, from a yellow to a green, that feedback process is continuous. It doesn't affect the grade until you get down here to the starred pieces. Some projects, for example, my PL 101 course, their final product, I am looking at giving the students 1 point for every green checkpoint and a ½ point for every yellow checkpoint. A red checkpoint would give them 0 towards their final score. So that project would have a negative impact for a red, but I'm not closing out that project until October 4th. So students have until October 4th to fix the errors and resubmit for feedback to change that yellow to green or that red to yellow. Did that help?
Yes, it looked like it answered that parent's question.
Excellent. Okay, more questions?
I have some other things about like follow-up, but not necessarily pressing for right now.
Okay. If there is nothing pressing for right now, that was a lot. Hopefully the handouts have been helpful. A quick reminder that when you are helping your student during Monday home office hours plan out their week, with 70% coming from those projects, you always want to prioritize projects. But remember that those PFAs, the power focus areas, all must be turned green by the end of the semester. So also, if they are struggling with one and cannot manage to turn it green, they can skip ahead. So if for some reason imperialism is something that the student is super excited about, they can take it early. They are not held to the order that they are in the platform. And if you pass World War I, it will jump all the way back over here and nudge the rest of them over. So students are allowed to take 2 attempts for each power focus area or additional focus area on their own using the proctor service. You'll notice on that second one, if for some reason a student went through all of these steps in the checklist and didn't master it, they can start their second attempt. They will get new goals set. They will have new feedback circles, and they'll take new notes, delving in on that objective that they didn't quite master. Then they can attempt a second time. If they still haven't mastered it, we do not want them spinning their wheels. That's where it's time to go to office hours and show up with that one-to-one time with the teacher in the Zoom and say, I'm really struggling with this objective. The teacher will talk through the notes, provide some tips and tricks, and open that third time. The limit on the number of attempts is by teacher. Most every teacher will allow a third or fourth attempt. But if your kiddo is really, really super struggling with atomic structure, we don't want them to stop learning conservation of mass, particle behavior, or gases and KMT. So we may push pause after the fourth attempt, and the teacher may nudge them into the next power focus area to make sure they don't fall farther behind, and then go back and revisit the non-mastered focus area at a later time. So again, the number of attempts is determined by the course teacher, but our goal is for all of us is to have the students really dig in and be sure they are mastering that baseline content that then they use in the projects. So for example, particle behavior. Okay. So 21% from the power, 9% from the additional, but the process is the same. Starting at the top, working your way down, be sure you set a goal so you know what you're supposed to work on with the power focus area or additional focus area that school day. Then the diagnostic, open the playlist. If there's a check for understanding, always do it. Take notes based on your feedback circles that you get from the diagnostic. When you're ready, request the assessment and then submit your notes to get that assessment approved. It's a 2-step process. We've had some kiddos that have been complaining because they requested 3 days ago and it didn't get opened, but they never showed anybody their notes. And that's the proof that they've engaged in the material and are ready to demonstrate their mastery. All right, Mr. Shinoda, I think at that point, we can go ahead and end the recording and open up